Right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Chats with Jack and Matt. We're delighted to have Steve Cardy on with us today, talking all things kind of elite juniors. A fellow professional. Uh, he has taught over 50 juniors to professional standard, got them to pro level, 9 going to college in the States, and has taught 3 full England internationals. So Steve is well versed in the journey that a coach and a junior has to go through to reach the elite level. So Steve, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
Right, let's delve straight in. Working with juniors then, it's something that you've obviously done a lot in your career and you've got them to the elite level. What sort of things do you look for in a junior? Not necessarily technically, but what do you look for in a junior that you feel like that can get them to the level that you want them to, that elite level?
Desire. They've got to really want to do it is the first thing. It takes an awful lot of work and it's an awfully long journey. I think the one thing that coaches have to bear in mind is that might be a journey from 10 years old to 20 years old. It might be a 10-year journey. So that desire to be able to keep doing that journey, be able to listen and go and practice and do the work they have to do that is probably the key. You're just part of that journey and help them along the way.
Keep them showing up, keep consistent with the day, with the stuff that people don't see, the daily grind of getting down the range and working at things all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just trying to keep them motivated enough, because we all know when it's going well, it's easy to be motivated. When suddenly they've had a few bad tournaments and things aren't going quite the way they want them to go, getting them to show up at the range tends to be a little bit tough then.
You learn more about you. I'm guessing you'd learn more about a play, even if they're 13 or 14, dealing with a little bit of adversity than constant wins all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones, that moment when it's all going a bit wrong and you have to find, that's when they find out, can they dig deep and keep doing the work and believe in the journey? Or do they
Absolutely.
wander off in another direction, play another sport or even things like that?
Matt, have you got anything to add to that? I want to ask a question from there.
No, I think it's absolutely right. I mean, what sort of what does the journey look like for you though, Steve? Is it a case of trying to, as well as being a coach, being a mentor, and is it encourage them to have X amount of lessons to keep them showing up? Is it a case of a schedule that you have with them in the background that they're doing? How do you kind of monitoring it while they're not here, while they're not with you?
I've tried all sorts of things. I've tried to get them to text me with how they're doing and text me with how the practice is going. Every one of them's individual. Every one of them's completely different, and I think that's really important to bear in mind. And I think it's the length of the journey and being able to explain to them that actually you've just got to keep doing the right things, and if you keep doing the right things, the results will come. Because we all know that there'll be times when it might be a growth spurt situation when somebody else will overtake them that they think they're better than. And then you have to just sort of double down on the journey that they're going to take. And it's not only the juniors, that's really important with the parents as well. Because the parents definitely tend to be the ones that become very result orientated. Yeah. In my experience, controlling the parents' frustrations or disappointments when their son or daughter doesn't do what they think they should do becomes really difficult. And the parents are often the ones that are going to take them to somewhere else or find another coach, or in danger of trying to do this almost coach roundabout thing where this one's not working, I'll go to someone else, then I'll go to someone else, and I'll go to someone else. And over my time, I've seen so many promising juniors being ruined by that coach merry-go-round that they go on looking for a magic bullet when there really isn't one. The only magic bullet is hard work.
Searching for results, aren't they? Searching for it. Go on, man.
Absolutely. I mean, what do you think what's the key to your relationship with the parents, Steve? Is it just trying to have that communication with them? And what does that look like? We've had these conversations before. Do you like parents to kind of be very there, watching, in and around? What's your sort of take on that?
I've probably tried everything from banning parents completely to having them there all the time and everything in between. I think my philosophy now is that ultimately the parents are the people that are going to bring them to the driving range, are going to take them to the practice ground. Without very supportive parents, no junior is going to achieve their goals. It's not a possibility. So I think you should take the parents along with the journey. What I tend to do nowadays is I have the parents at the lesson. And because I know the parents are going to want to help, little Johnny or Jenny's eating golf balls, the parents are going to want to say something. So therefore, I almost make the parents assistant coaches. This is what we're going to work on. This is what you need to monitor. And making sure the parents are really aware of what things that they should look for in the golf swing, so they don't say anything different than I would really want them to say, and they don't sort of take the juniors off on a different route. So I kind of, when they're younger, make the parents an assistant coach. And then as they get older and probably play more, we kind of make the parents manager, book the tournaments, book the hotels, arrange the travel, all of those sort of things that parents have to do. Without the parent support, it isn't going to work. So you have to involve them, and you have to find a role for them that allows them to feel involved, probably without them being detrimental to what you're trying to do. The last thing you need them to do is to tell them to swing slower and keep your left arm straight. That really is not going to work.
Going into technical pieces, then, a lot of the stuff about junior golf at the moment is participation. We want more people playing, etc. But when you're looking to build a junior in terms of their golf swing, what key things and principles, and we've had the chats before, but what key principles do you look for in developing a junior? What do they need to get to that elite level technique wise?
I've never really done the junior group coaching stuff. I have at a county level, and I have within the sports academy, but I've never really done it on an offer for myself. So really, all the juniors I've coached have wanted to be good players, or at least their parents wanted them to be good players. The first thing they've got to have is speed. In my mind, speed, distance is the key. I'd always get a junior to hit it as far as they could to start with, generally through levering the golf club really well. If you can get them to lever the club really well and sequence the body well, you're going to give them a good chance to create the distance they want. Then they need to be able to control the club face. If they can control the club face so they can hit it high, low, left, right, then they've got a chance. If they can have speed and control of the club face, you're going to be a long way towards making them from a full swing perspective, into a good player.
Do you see a lot of coaches now, assistant coaches through the PGA program, that follow more sort of your trends on your Instagrams and your things that you see, as opposed to going down that sort of route? So there's a lot of stuff about shallowing the golf club in the last few years, and bowing your left wrist a little bit more to be a bit more like Brooks and DJ and things like that. Do you see that a lot more with coaches now, doing that more than sort of learning about the golf swing from other people?
I think that's always happened. I think that the people that have been the top players or the top coaches have always set the trends as to what everybody else follows. We have to just be so aware as to whether the junior we've got in front of us can actually do that. Is it going to be the right move for them? Does it fit in with the way, especially they get a little bit older and they've got sort of an opinion on the way they want to hit the golf ball? Are they going to be a fader of the golf ball, or are they going to be a drawer of the golf ball? If they're going to be a fader of the golf ball, a drawing movement, massive shallow in the golf club won't work. So you have to kind of set there, certainly once they become better and they've got this view of how they want to hit the golf ball. I would never change that. I've never hit a shot for any of them. They're the person who's got to stand on the first tee and hit the golf shot. So I would never change how they see it. If they see they want to hit it left to right, I'm just going to work along the lines of giving them a golf swing that will hit it left to right. If they want to hit right to left, I'm going to work along the lines of giving them a golf swing that's going to hit it right to left. So that would be where I would start from as they got a little bit older, a little bit better. What shape do you see? If I put you behind this tree, you can't go over it and you can't go under it. Are you going to go around it left to right, or are you going to go around it right to left? Because that's how they see the shot. Once they see the shot that way, then the job really, from my perspective, is to build the golf swing that's going to allow them to hit that shot that they want to hit. So I've kind of tended always to stay away from trends. And, to me, every golf swing's got to have a power source. How are you going to create speed? How are you going to create enough speed to get the ball to go far enough? And how are you going to be able to control the club face to hit the shape of shot you want to hit and deliver the golf club from a path that's going to allow you then to create that shot?
Absolutely. I think it's so important, isn't it? I think I remember sitting in a PGA lecture once, and they were saying, as a coach, how many swings how many swings would you kind of ruin if you was a golf coach, if you like? You look at the old Bubba example of how he swings it. How many coaches would look at that and try and stop him doing certain movements? But yeah, it's been an incredibly good. Well, it's been great for him, isn't it? It's really worked his golf swing. You don't become a major winner like him doing it in a set way if you don't have that communication with the player, isn't it? Really. But just going back to like the early stages of building a swing, would you say it's important for power? Looking at body moves, would you encourage juniors to play other sports? Is there things that you would do or encourage away from a golf as well at an early age?
I think this is, for me, is a dilemma. From an academic point of view, I understand that we talk a lot about playing other sports and becoming good at other sports. All the good juniors I've coached have been quite single on golf.
Do you think there comes an age where they do it? Oh, sorry.
So you used to have this dilemma of whether it's better to, how much extra sort of what they're playing at school. Generally, if somebody that becomes really good at golf, probably a fairly decent sports person. So they're probably playing football, rugby, hockey, netball at school, and probably for the school. So they're doing a fair amount of sport outside of golf. Again, I think it's a very individual thing, isn't it? There are lots of arguments for both sides, as far as I can see.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's something that we talk about, isn't it? Encouraging juniors to play lots of different sports, and then they kind of specialize in something as they get a little bit older. And yeah, it's interesting to get that coordination. And do you just solely do it from a golf perspective, or trying to do it from other sports too?
And again, I think every case would be a case study of one. I think every junior would probably be different, wouldn't they? I'm sure if you tracked it back through the history of great players, there would be some that play lots of different sports, and there'll be some that have been golf only.
Might be a line, I think there's different routes to it.
I always think there's a danger of kind of going, every junior must do this. No, because they're all just an individual. And that's the relationship you build with them, isn't it? Some love other sports and want to play other sports, and I've never disencouraged them to do that. I think it's a great thing to do. Some just love golf and they're not really that interested in doing anything else. Are we going to push them into something they don't want to do?
No, definitely not.
As the junior sort of goes on that pathway, and as you kind of alluded to, they get older and they specialize in wanting to do their golf, and they start going on this journey. How do you see it in terms of working with other people? Is it a case of one junior or one performer should stay with a coach? We hear sometimes they go and see a short game coach, or they go and see perhaps a psychological coach, or they go and see a fitness coach. What would be your take on all of that?
I think as a coach, you need to know what you are good at, what you know, and then you can work along the areas that you know. And sometimes we're going to bring in experts for areas that we don't know. If we looked at something, people look at a big thing at the moment, ground reaction forces, and everybody looking at how they're going to produce the force from the ground. I know enough about it, but it's certainly not my field of expertise. So I'd be quite happy with a junior going along to see somebody that is really good in that field, if that was an area we felt we needed to develop. Nobody knows all the answers. So, but we would all, as coaches, be better in some areas than others. So then the answer is for me to know what I do know, but also to understand what I'm maybe not quite so good at. And if I'm not quite so good at, I'd have no problem with bringing somebody else in to work on that area.
Absolutely. And would you sort of go along to those sessions with them so you could understand it and help do that? Or is it a case of they go off and do it and you catch up with them after? And what would be your way of doing that?
Generally, for the first session they've done of it, I go with them.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because I want to increase my own knowledge. So from a completely selfish point of view, I want to understand a bit more about what's going on. But also, I think that, especially if they're at that age where they're not very communicative, we all know juniors go through this stage where, how's it gone? Good. What went well? Yeah, okay. And you get nothing out of them. So therefore, at that point, you need to go along and maybe explain to the specialist coach why you're going to see them and what areas this particular junior needs some help in. Not sure they're always the best at communicating that across.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to build that communication with that other person too, right? If they go and see them as part of a lesson, or to help in their lesson with yourself, you want to know both ways, isn't it? What are they working on in the golf lesson, Steve? Or you want to know from that coach what they've been doing there to work together, isn't it? It's a team effort, as you say.
None of us should ever be afraid of getting information from elsewhere and players working with other coaches. To me, anybody that's trying to be selfish, and this is my player, I want to, I want to be the only person that sees them, this is my dream, then you're not doing the best for the player.
Yeah, it becomes an
ego
thing.
Yeah, if the player thinks they want help from somebody else, so be it.
Absolutely.
What are your changing the subject a bit, talking about juniors playing in tournaments? Now, what are your thoughts around, this is good golfers over the years, exceptional at their age group, then move up to maybe an age group that's, say they're really good at under 13 and they want to move on under 14, move out to playing an under 16, under 18 events. The golf course becomes a bit longer for them. How would you advocate them sort of prioritising tournaments? Would you prioritise their age category, and then if they can get into something a little bit older, then they go there for the experience, or should they go and try and play the biggest tournaments they can and neglect their own age range? How would you see that? Because I know it's quite a big thing to get right for the kids.
Yeah, I would want them to play in their own age group. I think winning is something you need to learn to do, and I think that's a really difficult thing to learn to do. So I think if you're the best in your age group, go out there and keep winning. Get used to coming down 16, 17 and 18 with a chance to win. If you go and play out of your own age group, you're probably not going to win. The kids will be bigger, stronger, more experienced, had more time to develop their game. So you're really putting yourself at such a disadvantage that I think that you should win at your age group.
So prioritize your own age category. Get comfortable, as you say, get used to winning. Because I suppose kids have to learn both ways, don't they? They've got to learn to, I'm probably one of the best players in the field here. I expect to win. So it's dealing with that pressure. And then it's going to other events where you go, do you know what? I'm playing an event here. I know I'm not going to win. If I get in the top 10, that is kind of me winning, if that makes sense. So do you find that they struggle to deal with that? And, going to a tournament knowing you're not going to win, if you compete against people hitting it 100 yards further than you off the tee, it's a different mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, I would just personally see that as too demotivating. Again, it's going to depend on maturation and at what point the child goes through peak height velocity, because one 14-year-old might be able to cope with playing against under 16s because they're actually physically pretty developed. Somebody else might not be able to because actually they're 14 but in a body of a 12-year-old. So I think, again, it's like you saying, it's a case study of one. Each individual would be different. But I would certainly want them to win at their own level. I think, that is motivational. It is going to be part of what keeps them coming back to the practice ground and doing the things they need to do. And I think winning is the hardest thing to learn to do.
Have you ever had an example, not asking for names, so I don't know if there's any names, but where a junior is very good at their age group and they get a little bit sort of above their station, think they're better than they are, then you do throw them in the deep end a little bit and go, well, there's, like, for example, a kid keeps winning their local, I don't know, junior opens, and then they go out there to the wider world and they start thinking that there's more golf to be played than just in Essex, and then they get quickly brought back down to earth. Is that an important thing to not instill to them? Because you don't want them to learn to lose, but to actually realise what's out there.
I think they're playing sort of national events is really important for that. But again, that would probably be with people their own age in my mind, but playing national events is really important. And I think it probably happens in the girls' game more than the boys' game.
Mhm.
Because there's less girls, so it's relatively speaking easier to be dominant within your county if you're really good. But certainly the girls I've worked with have very much encouraged them to go and play national events to see how good the other girls are. Boys' game, I think there's just an awful lot more juniors that are playing, so therefore it's much more difficult to be absolutely outstanding within your own age group, within your county.
That makes sense, doesn't it, Matt? That makes a lot of sense, actually, what you're saying there.
Absolutely. I think as well, I was going to say, there's that, just going back to sort of prior to that, that on course, you have your junior that I think you have that conversation in terms of the handicap, and getting the handicap low enough to go and play in these events, and then playing around a home course and becoming good at their home course and getting that handicap done to enter these events, and then perhaps going to then struggle outside of that. What would you what would you encourage there, Steve? Would it be a case of play around the golf course and get good at shooting a score around your home course, and then, or would you go more down a route of we've got to go and play other places because they're always going to be at different events, different tournaments, different golf courses?
I think history of really successful players will suggest to us that really good players learn to shoot really low around their own golf course. A huge, relatively speaking, a huge percentage of good golfers, top tournament golfers, seem to have come from really relatively short, easy golf courses where they learn to shoot 64, 65, 66. You don't see anywhere near as many coming from a really tough golf course where level par is a great score. So I think that ability to learn to shoot low is really important. And I think that they tend to do around their own golf course. They know their own golf course. I would often put to them this idea that you probably are going to be when you first start going to away golf courses, you're probably going to be about 6 shots worse than you are around your own golf course. I think generally, if you play Stapleford, if you can get 36 points around your own golf course, it probably equates to about 30 around a golf course that you don't know. And kind of make them understand that so that they don't get too demoralised if they do have 38 points yesterday around my own golf course and 30 today when I went away. That's always been my benchmark, is 36 around your own golf course. When you first start travelling, is about 30 away from your own golf course.
Does there come a point where you then go, right, we need to stop playing so much at the home course because we want to up the 6 shots off? So we go and play other golf courses to almost get better at seeing different golf holes, different golf courses? Or
I think if juniors are really good, stopping them playing or controlling the amount they play is probably more important than getting them to play more. I've seen so many juniors that the county if they're really good, the county under 14 want them, the county under 16 want them, the county under 18 want them, their own golf club want them to play in youth shield matches, and it goes on and on and on. And really, to me, it's this balance, isn't it? Golf development for me is two-pronged. You've got a golf swing that you need to develop to be able to hit the shots that you want to hit. And you've got what I call a golf IQ, so an ability to understand playing golf. Those two things are related, but they're not the same thing. So you learn your golf IQ when you go out and play, you become better at playing golf, but you have to spend some time working on the golf swing. And my experience would be more that people get pulled into playing almost too much golf. And certainly when they're developing physically, the amount of stresses and strains that puts on the body and the mind, they're physically tired and mentally tired. So I've kind of found that being more of the issue than them not playing enough.
So then as they sort of move on that journey and they then play, as you say, in this event, that event, and you're trying to do it, would you try and work in a way that you'd almost kind of stop them playing to then get on the range and practice? Would it be a case of managing a, you know, as you say, a parent managing a schedule? Hi, Steve, I've booked this one, that one, this one, that one, you know, through a summer holidays, and actually, we need to have some time to do this as well, you know.
Yeah, and I've certainly taken the role on in the past of dealing with golf club junior organisers when playing a junior medal on a Wednesday isn't the right thing, and because often the juniors like the junior organiser have been good to them. The parents get on with the junior organiser. I've often taken the bad boy role of, I'm sorry, but X can't play this week in your youth shield side because he's going to be doing this or she's going to be doing that. So I've often, one of the things I did quite a lot was take that away from the player. So the player didn't, you know, if we decided they were playing too much, so the player didn't have to mentally deal with that. That's fine. I'll phone the junior organiser and tell them.
Yeah.
I've done that on a number of occasions. It doesn't make you very popular, but to me, that was better than the junior not being very popular, because the juniors can almost be manipulated into playing too much.
Yeah.
So I kind of took that role on. So it doesn't necessarily make you very popular with the junior organisers, but sometimes, you know, you've got to do what's best for the junior that's in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
With just looking at short game now, before we kind of finish up, we see a lot of juniors, you know, that prefer practicing, you know, striping 7-irons on the range, hitting driver, but they really struggle to kind of understand how important shots from inside 100 yards are, and actually really struggle with kind of a feel for it, you know, being able to judge distance with wedges and being very good at that. Would that be something that, you know, if your parents are going to watch this, that you'd advocate them spending more time working on their short game at certain times, or is that something you see as well? Is that a trend that we see in golf, that they don't practice their short game as much as their long game?
I think that probably applies to every golf, whether they're juniors or not. One of the things that I would do now, and this would be with the introduction of Top Tracer or Trackman ranges, these sort of ranges going to give you some feedback. I would set them a challenge, and my basic challenge is that we start with a 30-yard pitch up to their longest pitch, and they get a random number generator, and they have to hit it within the first level is 5 yards of either side. So if they get 40 yards, they've got to hit between 35 and 45 yards, and they've got to do that 10 points in less than 20 balls. Once they've done that 3 times, they then move to 3 yards. Once they've done that 3 times, they then move to 2 yards. And so I've sort of found that turning it into a challenge for them tends to make it a little bit more motivating than just hitting those. So that's kind of how I would now go about teaching pitching, or developing pitching as opposed to teaching it. But that would be my route, would be to set them a challenge, use a number generator so that they've got completely random distances within their pitching, so that we kind of go much more down a random practicing route and develop it that way.
You look at controlling this, getting them to have a bit more of an understanding of the distance, and then do you add in your stuff with sort of launch angles and things like that, trajectory control beyond that?
Yes, the first stage for me will be able to, what I've done in the past, can they control the distance? Then can they control the direction? You can only start where you can get a point with whatever the direction is.
Right.
But then we pick 2 points that it's got to be in between. So it's got to have the distance and it's got to land between those 2 flags. Once they can do those at 2 yards, they go back to the same process. Can you do it with 5 yards? Can you do it with 3 yards? Can you do it with 2 yards? Once they can do distance and direction, can you do distance, direction, and launch?
Can you imagine number for launch is what? Sorry, just so everyone knows.
Half the loft that you've hit it with, so less than 30 degrees. You've got to be careful you'll never do it if a range ball is wet. You'll never do it if the golf club face is dirty. So you have to persuade them that they've got to clean the face of the golf club, and they've got to make sure the ball's dry, and ideally the mat's dry. Otherwise, that when you start getting to a trajectory, it's a pointless exercise. You cannot get it to launch at those numbers.
It's too random.
You just can't do it. It won't happen. You'll increase the launch by about 5 degrees if you make the ball wet. So it's just not possible. So then they're going to do something. They're going to get very frustrated with actually they can't achieve what they're going to achieve. And if they happen to, they're going to be so low when they get a dry ball then you've completely undone it. You actually made it worse.
Yeah.
So that's what it'll be. Once we get into rejections, that's the hardest bit I've found is getting them to clean the ball and clean the golf club face, or make sure the ball's dry and clean the club face.
So something you've taught us over the years is if they haven't got access to, all right, top trace is great, but if they want to do it on the grass and they haven't got access to, say, a launch monitor, you've always taught us to build gates, haven't you, with like sticks, set it up, get the right distance away. Can you maybe talk to us a bit about that? How a junior would set up controlling their launch when they haven't got access to a launch monitor or anything like that?
You could make us use 4. We used to use 4 plumber's poles, sort of narrow inch tubing, and then put a crossbar over the top, and then you just go back.
What was the calculation you gave us before? In terms, I don't know if you know on the top of your head, but how far away you have to be from it? Is it a rough?
I knew you was going to ask me that, which I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I've got sport. I've got launch monitors now. I can't remember anymore.
But providing they've got something there that they're using, to control it, I guess something's better than nothing. And even if they are a bit too close, a bit far away, they're trying to manage it, aren't they?
Probably what I would do is I'd make it 6 foot high. That's certainly the height number, is 6 foot high, and work your way back to the stage where you can launch it just underneath it.
Okay.
So even if that is relatively close to start with, launch it underneath it. Once I've been successful at launching it underneath at that, move back a pace. Can I launch it underneath it at that? Again, it's all to me, everything is a little bit like the one thing juniors understand is computer games. So to me, everything is just a level on a computer game. Level 1 is, am I fairly close to it? Can I launch it underneath that crossbar? Yeah, I can do that. Now I move on to level 2, and then I can move on to level 3. And nothing about level 1 on any computer game is it's really easy.
Yeah, you can complete that task.
You complete the task. You don't make if computer games had level 1 that was impossible, all the kids would give up playing. So you give them success. These people are very clever at doing it that sell computer games, and to me, they've figured out that level 1, level 2, level 3 has to be relatively easy to get through. Once you get to level 10, level 11, it's much more difficult, and that's really how I see that kind of development. I really wouldn't want a junior to not succeed at level 1. So even if they get very close to it and get it under it, I don't care. That's good. You've succeeded. Now we can make it slightly more difficult. One piece of coaching advice I always think is if we think about setting a task, we know roughly that we should be able to do it. If we're going to improve, we should be able to do it more than 3 times out of 10 and less than 7 times out of 10. These are the basic numbers of challenge point. Now, one thing you can never do, one thing that's very demotivating is to make a task easier, because juniors, even adults, aren't stupid. They know you've just given them a bigger target to get it into. And their mental mindset, if you give them a bigger target, is, oh, he doesn't think I'm very good. He thinks I would have been better than that, and now he's had to make it easier for me. If you make it really easy to start with, and then you go, you've done so well. Look, we can make this target a little bit smaller, or this bar a little bit lower, or move back a little bit further, because you've done so well at it. That's motivating. And if you make a sort of, well, I don't think juniors particularly putt towards a hole. You make a circle out of cones that are bigger than a hole, which they roll it into. You give them success. Once they can roll it into your circle of cones, you then make the circle of cones smaller. But my first circle of cones is going to be big enough that they're going to have success.
It's probably important to say you would do that with really elite juniors as well, wouldn't you? Make the task easy first, give them a bit of confidence, and then you can make it. That's any level, isn't it?
Any level, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what level you're doing. You can always make things more. To me, as a coach, it's easy to make things more difficult because you can explain to them how well they're doing, and that's why we're making it more difficult. It's a much more difficult motivationally explanation as to why I've just had to make it easier. Because whatever you tell them, they know you've made it easier.
Yeah, there's no coming back from that either, is there? Made the box bigger.
However well you sell it, they know you've made it easier. So they then know that, or they then feel that maybe they weren't as good as you expected them to be.
Yeah.
I would always start everything from a couple of levels easier than I would expect this junior or adult, for that matter, to succeed at. Then I can make it from there more difficult.
Almost get a bit of a win to start with, so they can buy into maybe a technical change, and then you can I can do this. It gives them that confidence to carry on and take it from there.
It's far easier to demotivate a pupil than it is to motivate them. It's far easier to ruin a player than it is to make them better.
That's a really powerful statement, and something for people to adhere to. Definitely. Right, I'm going to round it up there because I'm just conscious of the timer in the corner. So thank you very much for your time, Steve. I'm sure this will go a long way to helping, parents, other coaches and juniors kind of improve and take some ideas on board. So thank you very much. And we'll see you at the club in a bit. Because I don't know, we'll work together.
See you in a little while.
Right, thank you very much.
I'll see you in a little.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Matt.
Bye.